Good day, fellow survivor, and welcome back to another episode of Hammer D20, the show that's still looking around for a 35mm film camera. My name is Steven Sobot, and I will be your guide. Today's going to be a bit of a special episode because we're going to be focusing on the Hamilton Film Festival. For those who don't know, the Hamilton Film Festival is Hamilton's biggest film fest and was running for 16 years. It's one of the top 100 rated film festivals in the world, having screened over 1,000 films from 50 different countries. This year's going to be an interesting one, considering that theaters weren't sure whether they'd be open or not for guests to come in. However, since the Stage 3 has been allowing people to come in limited capacity with double vaccination, the festival is a go. But I didn't interview the festival director, Nathan Fleet, for nothing, and for me to tell you about it, I spoke to him about what's happening, what you can hope to expect, and how the festival is going. Over to you, Stephen.
Just a recap, what is the Hamilton Film Festival generally?
The Hamilton Film Festival is really, I would say, a filmmaker's film festival. It's a place where you can watch and submit movies from all over the world and see movies that you will never see again. These are not movies that have distribution or a promo publicity group behind them. These are true independent movies that are trying to break into the scene.
Perfect. And this year has a certain theming. What is the significance of this year?
So our theme this year is coming of age. And the reason we picked that theme was because we turned 16. So we went with the tagline, "Now we can drive." So we have a cool car logo that's part of our branding this year. And we thought that, as much as I think, wow, 16 years, that's a long time. If you put it in human years, it's actually not. Like we're a teenager. We're just learning to drive. And it's funny, too, because this year we asked all of the directors who were selected to send a photo of themselves when they were 16 years old.
Okay.
So we're going to put a collage together of all the directors when they were 16 to show, how young and naive we actually are as an organization.
When does the film festival start and when does it end?
So we start November 6th and we run through to the 14th. So it's a Saturday to a Sunday, 9 days, and we are pretty much 90% in person this year. So we're going to be spread out across Hamilton in the Westdale, the Staircase Theater, which is our original home where the festival started. We'll be at the Playhouse Cinema and at the Starlight Drive-In. And we'll also have some broadcast on Cable 14 and some streaming through Cable 14 now. So and of course, we have networking panels that will be through Zoom. So there's a little bit of online and a whole lot of in person.
In addition, as you mentioned, you can go in to watch the films. What else can the audience do to kind of participate with the process of the film festival?
Well, typically for every movie, there is somebody in the audience that was part of that movie. So we always do a Q&A after the movies are done, and we ask anyone that participated in the movie to come up and speak to the audience. So there's always that chance where you'll get to ask a question or even meet somebody, because there's a lot of filmmakers that attend hoping to meet another director, producer, cinematographer, actor. There's a lot of networking that happens that way. We'll have to do it safely this year, but we'll be, everyone will be double vaccinated in the theater, so they'll be able to feel a little bit more comfortable when they're, sitting next to someone, asking questions, and hopefully exchanging ideas and contact information. That's a huge part of what audiences can do is that networking and meeting people. We've seen teams form at the Hamilton Film Festival. People that have never met each other. You see them talking, and then 2 years down the road, they're together submitting a movie to the festival and saying how they met at our event. So we really kind of create that environment and encourage it. We really encourage it because that's, you got to be in the room.
Yes, exactly. And as like when you see some styles of some people's work, you might be like, oh, I like working with that. Like, oh, we made a similar film and theme. Maybe we can work together, like, kind of, and then collaboratively get something matched together with similar minds, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what happens. You don't know what movies you're going to be seeing most of the time, especially if you go to a shorts program. You get a synopsis, but you really don't know what the movie's about.
Mm.
And as you're watching it, you might see something that sparks an idea that you've already been thinking about, or, oh, I need an animator, and that animation in that movie was fantastic. I need to find out who that was. And you can turn to your left or right, or look in front of you, and there's the person that was involved in the movie, and you can get those answers instantly. Because, once the festival's done and you go home, you forget to look it up, or you look up a movie and maybe they don't have an online presence like a big movie would have, and then you forget about it. So being in the room at that time is really, really important.
Certainly, as you mentioned, like a big part of the purpose of the festival, obviously, other than just to show the films that would not get the worldwide release, but also for industry people or people who want to get into the industry to really get their foot wet and get their foot in, right?
Yeah, and
Sorry.
that also applies to myself, as running the festival, but I'm also a director and a creator. And there's a TV show that I'm working on right now called Wild Child, and we're going to do a little presentation of that at the film festival this year. The entire team is made up of people that I met at the Hamilton Film Festival.
Oh,
so our executive producer, our writer, our camera operators, these are all people I met through the film festival that I did not know before. And I sit back and think, wow, like if I didn't have this event, this TV series may not have even been happening. So it's even the person who licensed the show from us, I met at the Hamilton Film Festival at a panel. So like it benefits the emerging filmmaker who's never been to an event before, all the way right up to the top of the the executive directors. You get to meet people from all over that you just don't pass by on a day-to-day basis.
I understandable. And I will get back to a couple of questions with the film festival, but are you at liberty to kind of talk about Wild Child?
Oh yeah, talk about it. Yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah. What is the conceptually, what is Wild Child?
So Wild Child is it's a wilderness challenge show for kids. So I came up with the idea early pandemic 2020 when everyone was kind of locked inside, and my daughter and her cousin took a trip to a local pond, and they brought a butterfly net, and they went to catch fish with a net, like just little tiny fish, and catch and release. And I said, that's interesting. That would make a neat idea for a show where you send kids off into the wilderness to do, some basic things that, I remember growing up with that kids may have lost along the way. And so that was where the idea of Wild Child was born. And I called Jeremy Major, who is the producer of the show. And I said, Jeremy, I got an idea. And I told it to him, and he said, that sounds great. Let's kind of move that up the pile because we're working on a number of projects together. And then we took it to Fred Fuchs, who is the executive producer of the show. And he loved the idea, and he thought it was very important that we do this. And he was also, he's a Hollywood film producer, but he also sat on the board of the Hamilton Conservation Authority. So we took it to the Conservation Authority, and they partnered with us to make this show happen. And then we took it to Bell 5 TV1, who agreed to finance it, to license the show from us so that we could produce some episodes. And we were off to the races. And now we're in the process of negotiating an Australian version of the show. And more things are kind of in the works, but it's this little tiny thing that started off in Hamilton because of the Hamilton Film Festival, could grow into like an international show. So that's it hasn't happened yet, but that's the potential, and things are in motion with that. But that's kind of how it went together. And all the people that I reached out to, that make up the majority of the crew, I met through the Hamilton Film Festival.
Perfect. Yeah.
So being in the room is really important.
Very happy to hear that.
And we'll do a little talk about it, like on Sunday, November the 7th. At the Westdale Theater at 10 a.m. We're showing some movies that were made by kids through the Hamilton Film Festival Kids Can Film Camp. And then right after we're done that, we're going to do a little presentation on Wild Child so people can see what the show's about, maybe how they can get involved in season 2 or further seasons.
Mhm.
So we are going to do a little bit of a presentation on the show at the film festival, and it's free. It's free to attend.
Okay, perfect.
It's all on the website.
Yeah. Okay, good. Something that you can find the info for is going to be on the website. Perfect. The kids can film. Do you want to go over that just for a bit?
Yeah, we've been running that for, we might be in our 5th year, maybe 4 or 5 years now. And it's basically summer camp and March break camp, filmmaking camp for kids.
Perfect.
It's really that simple. And they do everything. So it's up to them to write their own dialogue. You know, we come up with a story, a concept, they write their dialogue, then they learn how to use the equipment, they operate the equipment, they act, direct, produce, they do the art direction, they do everything, and I kind of stand back and make sure that everything runs smoothly. And so these movies are, 100% made by the kids. They watch what we call the dailies. They watch back all the takes at the end of each class, and they pick which take they think is the best, and that's the take that goes into the movie.
Oh,
so they
cool.
get the full process, and then of course they get the final presentation at the Hamilton Film Festival in front of a giant audience at the Westdale Theater. So it's always a great chance for the kids to hear the audience react to their movie. So right from concept to presentation, that's what Kids Can Film is about.
I just noticed that you released the new, I think they're enamel pins.
Yes.
So this is, I guess, if someone were to be like they want to watch the films, what are the ways, like how do they kind of get into the theater generally?
So there's your pass, Stephen.
Yes, yeah.
That's the one you're going to get.
Yep.
So our film passes this year,
Yes.
which I think just sold out again.
Okay.
So our first round sold out, and I think we just sold out again. So I think that will be it, because we just have to make sure that we also have room for ticket holders. So
right.
So if they are sold out, which I think they are, you won't be able to get one of these really cool keychains, which you'll be able to just kind of show at the door and walk through.
Yeah.
A pass you can keep. And the other way to get it is just online. Go online to hamiltonfilmfestival.com and look through the program and order your tickets. It'll be a digital ticket that you'll get to your phone. And that's pretty much how you'll be able to participate this year.
Good.
So you'll be able to flash your badge, and of course show proof of double vaccination and ID. But your car will be the last. You'll just flash it, and you'll be able to walk right into any of these events and have a great time.
Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for your time, Nathan. I'm going to just throw it back to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen, and thanks for your time, Nathan. I hope to see you sooner than later. Before we move on to our next segment, let's take a short break. See you soon. Welcome back. As Nathan had said, the purpose of the film festival, or at least one of the main purposes of it, is for burgeoning filmmakers to get a chance to see how others ply their craft in the film industry. Although the idea is for it to share indie films and to garner that interest, the main purpose, really, well, one of the main purposes, is to get others who are new or learning or want to have some of their ideas kind of combine and collaborate with others and then work together to make something better. Almost like others teaching others to work with this. One such event that is happening that kind of collaborates with this idea is on November 7th, the Page Turners Cinematic Books event, which at the Westdale Theater, you get to meet 3 different authors who each spoke about or are in some way involved with film and cinema. One of which is previous Hammer D20 guest Stephen Hayes, who wrote the book When the Luck Runs Dry, based off his award-winning indie film Lucky 7, which follows a down-on-his-luck gambler who's framed for murder, follows the seedy underbelly of Hamilton, and tries to look at what that does and how this affects this person and how his life has been changed because of it. Another is Aaron Lamb, a local author and filmmaker who wrote 2 books, Composing Adventures, which collects interviews Aaron conducted with famous film composers about their work, and Believing a Man Can Fly, a book that follows the work of Oscar-winning special effects director and film director Colin Chilvers, famous for his special effects work in the first 3 Superman films, including winning the Oscar in the first one, and directing the Smooth Criminal music video by none other than the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. Although you can come down to the Westdale Theater on November 7th to meet with him, I'm giving you a prime opportunity to listen to some of his stories about what he had done, how he achieved it, and what advice he might give to a burgeoning filmmaker. Stephen, let's go talk to Colin.
I know that you've won an Oscar as well as a BAFTA for one particular film. What film was that?
Superman, the movie, the first one.
Excellent. Yes. I like even rewatching that scene, like it's like, you know, obviously 40 or so years ago, right? Like, you know, quite a lot's changed, but it, you know, it looks like he's flying. It looks like he's moving through the air, going through this, like it, right? Yeah. Like, unless you're keeping a secret from everyone and know that Christopher Reeves could actually fly. But
I think that Chris thought he could, which, I mean, actually, if you think about it, you needed to have that mental image that you were flying.
Yeah.
And actually, what helped a lot was he was a pilot.
Oh.
So some of the flying was done, as you probably know, against what we called front screen projection.
Yes.
And for that, we had this big screen, I think it was 60 feet wide.
Oh.
And Christopher was on a pole arm, like a pole that went through this back of the screen. And then there was a fiberglass body mold of him that we strapped him into.
Okay.
And then that was on a hydraulic little knuckle that we could then move him around.
Oh.
So that we could actually bank him over a bit and move him around. And he was very into the fact that when he was flying against some of our flying backgrounds, aircraft don't always fly straight.
Yes.
So he would sometimes ask the guy that operated that rig, which was a guy who also did the wire flying, Bob Harmon. He would tell Bob at this particular point, I want to kind of go do a bit of this or a bit of this, just so that it looked like he was kind of flying against the wind.
Mm.
And it works, you know. And also when he used to take off, even for us, I kind of say in the book, the second, on the beginning of Superman 2, the first sequence we shot with Chris was in Niagara Falls.
Okay.
And it was him taking off from the falls to save the kid that had fallen over the falls. And he came out, he hadn't flown for 6 months, and we put him on the wires, and Bob Harmon was there, of course, and I said to Chris, would you like to take a couple of practice? He said, no, let's just go for it. And at that time, he had a bathrobe on. So we're ready to do the shoot. We took the bathrobe off, and he just he just knew exactly what he should do. Bob and him were completely in sync, and off he went. And he looked, and all the hairs on the back of my neck went up, because it was like he was flying. Huh. It was amazing that with Bob Harmon and Chris, how they would have to coordinate, because Bob had him on a wire, obviously. Mm-hmm. But if Chris crouched down and jumped and Bob wasn't with him, he would just jump like this and stop. So he had to be perfectly in line and in sync for it to work. Same with the landing as well. I mean, if he dropped him down too soon, it would look stupid. And same with taking off and running. All of those things had to be almost, they knew each other's minds. It was amazing.
Yeah. It needed both of them to, as you said, for him to be able to believe that he can fly, that Chris can do that. And then, as you said, he's flown before, so he gets the concept of it.
Yeah.
I guess more just like just the basics for it. I understand what the wire is, what that is. Could you explain that just generally?
Well, just Chris was fitted with a harness.
Okay.
Around his waist and around his hips, and then we had him attached to 2 wires. And in those days, the wires had to be thin enough that you wouldn't be able to see them, or they needed it to be taken out in post-production. Mm-hmm. I mean, these days they use like 1/4-inch cable because they get rid of it so easily digitally, but we didn't have digital effects in those days. So it was either a matter of using a thin wire, and I mean, those wires, they were piano wires as well.
Oh.
So they were they call them piano wire because it's a single strand.
Yeah.
Whereas, most modern wires are 7x7 or 7x14, which is a lot less can go wrong. Because if you bent the piano wire a couple of times, it would break.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was very important to be extremely cautious when you were hanging Chris.
Yeah.
And obviously we were.
That's
But
interesting.
it was, that was one source of flying, was for when he was up in the air, flying in and out of situations. We would usually use that. Long flights, like across the desert or something, would be against this pole arm.
Okay.
Or close-ups would be against the pole arm. And then we also did blue screen.
Okay.
Process screen.
You also directed the Smooth Criminal music video. That's another one
Yes.
that a lot of people will definitely instantly recognize. How was that generally?
That was amazing. I mean, that was almost 2 years of my life working with Michael Jackson. So that was incredible.
2 years to do that.
It started off, it was going to be 9 minutes long, which was just a music video. And then Michael expanded it to, I think it was over 40 minutes long in the end. And it had the 3 kids in it and Joe Pesci. And I mean, it turned into a complete movie, if you want. It was then part of the Moonwalker movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Finally
Right.
made. He was an incredible person to work with. We became good buddies, as much as you can be with somebody like Michael. My wife and I would often go and eat dinner with him. And Bubbles, of course, the monkey. Yes. We'd all have dinner together. And he had a very good understanding of what he wanted to do he was a perfectionist. And if he didn't like we would go to dailies, when you go to watch the day before production filming, and we would go to dailies. And usually, normal movies, you would go to dailies. Generally, the artist wouldn't bother to come. The director would go with the editor and they would sit down and say, I like that, I don't like that. Our dailies, there was at least 60 people in our dailies. Because all of the dancers wanted to come and see it. Michael would come and most of the crew, which was amazing. But of course, that would take a bit too long, and the producers would get pissed at us because we were taking too long to watch them. But at the same time, Michael would look at something and say, I can do better than that. So we would go back and reshoot it, which generally you wouldn't get that much of a chance to do. But he was also financing it, so he could do whatever he wanted.
No, exactly. And that was exactly what the little extra something that made Michael Jackson the superstar he was, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
I've also looked through, you've worked on a lot of other notable films and works like Rocky Horror Picture Show and X-Men.
Yeah.
What was probably your favorite movie or set to work on?
For different reasons. I think Superman, especially the helicopter sequence in Superman, was the biggest challenge. And challenges, we could fly Superman. We knew how to do that by now. We'd been practicing for a long time.
Yeah.
But you had the whole thing of that particular sequence of the helicopter. It was a full-size set that was maybe 20 feet off the ground, that the helicopter could hang over the edge of it, which I had the helicopter on a hydraulic rig so that I could make it kind of teeter on the edge.
Right.
And then we had a miniature helicopter set so that when it's falling down towards him, he would be able to, you get the scene, with a wide angle of the helicopter falling towards you. Then we had a full-size set on front screen projection so that when he catches the helicopter and catches her. So it was all of those things had to be choreographed in as much as each of that scene, little mini scenes had to be storyboarded so that each one would lock together so it looked seamless. You never knew that there was 3 different helicopters, one being this size and one full-size one. That's what I tell people that say to me, how do I get into the business? You just keep trying.
Yeah.
If you've got enough determination, skill is one thing, determination is another thing. That puts you at the right place at the right time. One of the guys that I worked with on a commercial, a guy called Kevin Pike, who's an effects man in the States. Kevin had finished working on Back to the Future.
Oh, okay.
And through Back to the Future, Michael Jackson had seen Back to the Future and loved the car on Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah.
And wanted to do this music video that was in his head where he turned into a car.
Yeah. Okay.
So he asked Kevin to go and meet him.
Yeah.
They discussed, cars and stuff like that. And it worked out that Michael hadn't got a director for it. Most of the directors that Michael had wanted to use, the Spielbergs of this world,
Yes.
They've got things going on in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was suggested by Kevin that Michael should meet with me. Never done a music video in my life. Met Michael, discussed, he knew about my Superman thing with the Academy Award, and also I'd done a load of kids stuff, which of course there was 3 kids in their movie. So
Yes.
I ended up, suddenly I'm now working for Michael Jackson. So, it's a lot of these things, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. But you also have to make the opportunities to be in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
There's no such, it's not luck as such. It's not luck. It's just that you happen to be doing something that leads you onto another thing that leads you onto another thing. So that's how I got to work with Michael.
But but to get to that point, you had to have been working the whole time on something. I say working on commercials, working here, going to LA, going here, like it wasn't just like you're gonna sit back and be like, well, I'm just gonna let the accolades of Superman wash over me. No, you had to continue working from there on, right? So thank you so much for your time, Colin. I'm just gonna do a throw and throw it back to you, Stephen.
That's all the time we have for Hammer Deep 20. If you yourself are interested into attending the Hamilton Film Festival, as I'm slightly hinting to, you can go onto their website, hamiltonfilmfestival.com, and order tickets for each event. The website tells you when and where each screening is. Additionally, if you want to meet Colin or the 2 other authors, Aaron Lamb and Stephen Hayes, you can attend their seminar on November 7th at 1 p.m. at the Westdale Theatre. All you have to do is give proof of vaccination, as well as it's free. Additionally, the film festival will run from November 6th to November 13th, so you've got a lot of chances to check out some local and global indie films. That's all we have for now. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.